Good evening. Good evening. This is Prudence, your marketplace motivator, talking to you about winning in the marketplace. And we are here once again we are going to talk about community. So, in the month of December, I'm talking about community, and I'm talking about why it's important to build community, why it's important to have a strong community, why it's important for us to be plugged in. And so I'm very delighted that you're here this evening. Our Facebook audience, I am welcoming them. I'm welcoming our YouTube audience. I'm welcoming all the partners of the marketplace, the International Marketplace Summit. So it is wonderful to have you online with us today. Just waiting to have this conversation with you. Are we live there on the International Marketplace Summit? Are we live on the International Marketplace Summit? Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm also welcoming those. So if you could share with our Facebook page for Prudence Michumi, we can then also connect with our people on the Facebook page who are going to join us today to talk about winning in the marketplace. And how do we win in the marketplace? By having a strong community in the marketplace. And how are we building that strong community? We're building that strong community through having strong families. So today we're talking about strong families. It is Christmas time, and I trust that most of us are thinking of going to our family homes. We are thinking of traveling. So that is why we're talking about community, and that's why we're talking about the family. So I'm still waiting for more people to log on. Whilst we're waiting for people to log on, we want everyone to share the live link with those in the marketplace, share it with our other platforms so that we can get the discussion going. So I'm just going to pause here to wait for others to log on, but welcome for those who have already logged on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm looking forward to you being with us tonight. So let me see if I can get a better angle here on my devices. So here we are. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I'm hoping that you again can let us know who's online, who is watching, where you're logging on from, and we can engage tonight. It's a conversation, so it's not about me talking to myself and by myself, but it's about us conversing about how do we build strong communities through family. So how do we find unity in diversity? So let us hear from you. Who's out there with us today? You are with your host, Prudence, the Marketplace Motivator, talking to you about winning in the marketplace. Sahil, welcome, welcome, welcome. Let us hear from you. Who's out there? Who is with us tonight? Who is going to be live with us, having the conversation about winning in the marketplace through building strong communities? And we're talking about the foundation piece of our community, which is family. Family. So now I'm saying that family is so important because family is the foundation piece. Family is the building block. Family is how we build strong communities, we build strong societies. And last week I was talking about family is also the piece of how are we going to build a nation. Family is how do we build our nations. So let us hear from you. We are waiting for more people to log on. Welcome to everyone who's already watching. We are looking forward to engaging with you tonight. I'm looking forward to engaging with you tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing what kind of questions you're going to ask tonight, because it is interesting to hear, what are the meditations that some people have around the topics that we will be discussing tonight. Just to think about families and to think about who is in our families and to think about the people in our families. How do they go about interacting with one another, those difficult family relationships? And I think I specifically want to touch on that today, because as we are maybe thinking of traveling home and spending time with our family, We look at 2021. Oh my goodness, has this been some kind of year? It has been a very interesting year, 2021, where we are looking at such a difficult year, such a tough year, such a time when we are thinking about, we people are just going through the most, and we didn't think that we're going to make it. I'm very well, thank you, Sahil. How are you doing? How are you doing? So we've been going through a tough year, and we are looking at um, many people are not making it. Many people didn't make it. And today I was even attending a funeral. So we're seeing that people are still going through the most. And this 2021 year, it's like, I think someone said it's like 2020 and 2021 has been one long, drawn out lockdown pandemic year. And we are sitting there thinking, when is this ever going to end? Because now we're going into the fourth wave. What does that mean? My son was saying to me, Mom, it's now becoming predictable, because can we predict that like next year we're going to be here at lockdown again in December holidays, when we're thinking about, oh my goodness, we just need to chill, it's holiday. I told you guys I've got my holiday look here, right? You think it's holidays and you're thinking, I'm just looking forward to just checking out of my diary, checking out of my schedule, getting to the place where I'm thinking I just need a break. And here we are again, lockdown. We are here again with restrictions. In fact, we're not locked down. We have the fourth wave in South Africa. So we are talking about, we are on the red list for travel. So that has even affected me. So I'm supposed to be out of the country at the moment, but I'm stationed here now because of Omicron. So these are the challenges that we have to navigate in these turbulent times. And it is important that we're becoming more flexible with being able to see ourselves through tough and turbulent times, to be more flexible when we have to make plans, and when we have to change those plans, we have to cancel our travel arrangements and our holidays, and we have to do it differently. If you thought like myself, you won't be here in South Africa for Christmas, and here we are. Here I am. I'm home for Christmas, and I have to make some other travel plans and arrangements over the Christmas holidays. So that is so we're talking about family. We're talking about how are we going to build strong communities through family, and the topic that I had is, how do we find unity in diversity? So what do I mean by diversity? So let's start our conversation. What do I mean by finding unity in diversity? So I'll talk back. I'll just maybe touch back on what we were covering the other day when we were talking about community, how to build strong communities, and that communities are the building blocks of a society. A society are the building blocks of a nation. And so the reason why I'm talking about community is, if we look at again what we've been going through for the last 2 years, it's been quite interesting that people have been going through the most. And as you are sitting in your home, we had to relate differently. We had to connect differently. And I think we were all shocked by lockdown. What does it even mean? How long is this lockdown going to be? And I remember I was one of those people who was out of the country at the time. So I came back with one of the last flights back home. And there was a time when I was sitting in that international airport, and I thought, am I going to make it home? And I remember when I was seeing our boarding passes, like the flights getting canceled, the flights are getting canceled. There was a point where I thought, maybe it's not such a bad thing. If I do get locked down in another country, probably 2 weeks, give or take 2 weeks, I'll be back home. Little did I know, in lockdown now, we are in over 600 days into lockdown, but we are at least at advanced level 1, I hope. And so we are looking forward to when we can get rid of the masks, when we can interact like we normally used to. But at the same time, when I say as we used to, I know that many things will never be as they used to. We are not going to go back to the society we had before this global pandemic. So I remember, as I was saying, that I was locked down there. I was in another country, and I came home, and I was thinking about, if I'm locked down there, what would happen? That it would just be 2 weeks away from home, and we know that other people have been locked down in other countries for a very long time. Parents were separated from children. I know about people whose spouses gave birth to their new children, the new addition of their family members, whilst they were in foreign countries, locked down in other countries. Oh my goodness, this pandemic has really shown us flames. It has really shown us there's a different way of life. And I'm talking to you about that in terms of how important it is then to have family. And I think sometimes we don't appreciate our families enough. Sometimes we don't appreciate our family relationships enough. Sometimes how we have troubled family relationships. And so we're going to talk about all of those today, finding unity in diversity. And first of all, in our families, we have different siblings with different personalities. Our parents have different views. They're from a different generation. Then our children are from a different generation with different values, different ways of doing things, different ways of thinking about things. So there is just a lot that happens in families typically. So whilst we sitting and waiting, good evening, Pastor Hawk. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's wonderful to host you today in this conversation where we're talking about building strong communities. And we are talking about building strong communities through the foundation piece, that's family. How do we build strong families? And families build strong communities and society. And a strong society is the building blocks again for our nation. So how do we find unity in diversity? So in a family, typically, you grow up, you land in a family, and what is interesting for me is to see the different members of a family. So the different members of a family, how children could be born in the same home with the same parents, the same genetics. Can I say that? We hear about the conversation now talking about that genetics and the issue around COVID, the issues around vaccinations. So family members, you would have them, children growing up in the same families, but they turn up differently. So they wire differently, their DNA is different, they think differently. So this is what I mean by diversity, that we are all diverse, we're all different. We all have different ways of doing things and different belief systems. And because of those belief systems and those differences, we then behave differently. We have different preferences. We have different ways of doing things. So imagine a family of, let's say, 5. Let's say a mother and father, parents, and a family of 5 children. Each one of those children are different. Each one of those children turn up in the world differently, and they may be in the same environment. And I know there's a conversation about nurture or nature. How do we, manage ourselves when we grow up in a particular environment? If you grow up in a tough environment, what do you tend to do and how do you tend to survive? If you've grown up in a privileged home where everything was there, how does that tend to affect us? So just in families, if I go back to our example of a family with 5 children, if you are in that family and if you want to just maybe take a moment to reflect on your family, so just think about it. Think about your siblings. Think about each one of your siblings. Very, very different. And I want you to think about the personality of every single sibling that you have. So think about it. What kind of preference do you have? And think about those Christmas parties. Think about get together, family gatherings, family anniversaries, birthdays, any opportunity and occasion where the family has to come together. What kind of things do you tend to do? Hi, good evening, Hegel's Organic. Welcome. Lovely, lovely. Thank you for joining us this evening. So if you think about the family, then we are talking about the parents. Think about your 2 parents, how different they are in terms of their personality and preferences. Then think about your siblings, how different your siblings are in terms of their personality and their preferences. And then I just want you to imagine, how do you interact with your family members? So if you have a family gathering and you're going to invite everybody, what kind of thinking process do you go through and what kind of warm and fuzzy feelings do you get when you're thinking about, I'm going to invite my family? Do you have that moment of, am I going to invite this person? And if I invite this person, then they're going to be fighting with this person. And if I invite this one, then they're going to be domineering and dominating what we are doing and what we should be doing. Do we have amongst our siblings, the person who's the oldest, and he always wants to make he or she always wants to lay the law down in terms of what's supposed to happen. So this is why we're talking about family, because we're talking about building strong communities. And the building blocks of a strong community is the family. So now that you've had some time to think about it, I want you to think about your siblings. We talked about personality. So how do they tend to do things in your home if you have to take decisions? So let's take, for example, you have to think about where you would go on a family holiday with your siblings. How would you get to that decision? How would you decide where do you go on that family holiday? Would you all agree to go to the same place? Would you agree that it's better to fly to that place and spend money to buy tickets? Would some people say, no, I think we should have a drive. Let's drive to the holiday destination. Let's not fly there. So let's save money. Let more people be able to come along because it's cheaper. What type of accommodation are we going to get? Are we going to have hotel accommodation? Shall we get a self-catering apartment? How big should it be? What is it? Are we going for luxurious? Are we going for a really basic accommodation? So the reason why I'm talking about this is because these are all the decisions that you will typically make in a family, right? And I'm just trying to show you all the diversity that turns up in a family, all the kind of decisions. And these are day-to-day things that happen with us in our families, and we don't really stop to think about, why do we do that? Why do I get on with this one person and I don't get on with another one? Why do I get on with my uncle and I don't get on with my aunt? Why do I get on with my sister and I don't get on so well with my brother? It's because of the personality types that we have. Sometimes you feel like someone's very opinionated. Somebody, they're always dominating the conversation. They always want to have their way. And this is why we are talking about family, because I want you to reflect in this time about, am I that family member that people are thinking, oh my goodness, Prudence is coming around for Christmas. Everybody nail all your things to the floor. A whirlwind is coming. Or are you a family member who is really chilled? You're really easy to get along with. You are open to negotiate on the things that you do. Even it's like a movie. This could be just you and a boyfriend wanting to go and watch a movie. And then you just can't. Somebody must always choose. Or you going to a restaurant with your boyfriend, with your husband, with your parents, with your children. And here you're sitting in the restaurant and you're thinking, what shall we get to eat? And then how do you negotiate what you're going to eat? So I want us to really think about practical things that sometimes are the sandpaper, that's what I call it, in our families. And that is why we don't get on well with one another. But one of my reflection points for COVID has been that during this time, it really was time to sit back and think about, how can I forge better relationships with the people that are important in my life? Because as we can see, a lot of people are not around anymore. I myself have lost my parents during this time. Yes, not to COVID, but during this time of COVID. And it has been very difficult because I sometimes still do a take to, like, they're not here anymore. All in 2021, right? Lost my parents in 2021. So this is what people are going through. So I want us to make more effort with our relationships, make more effort, especially in our family. And I want us to just take a pause and think about, why do I get on with people and why don't I get on with people? I guess, they all say that you can't choose your family. So because you can't choose your family, it's like, am I stuck with these people? And if I'm stuck with them, I might as well have fun with them. So are you going to think about, how do I practically forge better relationships with my family members? So I'm just going to pause there. So we've had a good introduction. Our topic today, this is Prudence, your marketplace motivator. I'm talking to you about community, building strong communities. And today we are honing into, how do we build strong communities through families, and how do we find diversity, within the diversity of our families, how do we find unity? How do we find a common ground on which we can build those strong families? So I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to ask our audience who are watching, Untire Letsi, Welcome also. Pastor Hawk is still with us. So I'm going to give an opportunity for us to pose some questions. Tell me about your experiences in your family. Tell me about your siblings, your family. And are you getting on? Are you finding that something that I'm saying is resonating with you, where it is difficult to get on with some people in our families, where it's difficult maybe to get on with your siblings, or you can just tell us about how different you are. Sometimes I find it very fascinating when I see people who are identical twins, and I think about how they say the one knows what the other one is feeling, even if they are separated. But most of us are having the experience where you are just a person by yourself with your own feelings, your own views, your own opinions, your values, things that you feel very strongly about. And sometimes things that you're thinking, I'm not going to compromise on this. I am not going to let this person walk over me. I'm not going to give in this time. She always has her way. He always gets his way. But this time, I'm not backing up. I'm not backing down. This time, I'm going to have my way. So we're talking about families, and we are just facing one of our big holidays of the year. So we most likely are going to be meeting our family soon. So I just want us to show up differently when we are going to meet our family this time. So I want to hear, how are we going to forge, yes, better relationships in our family? Because they say we don't choose our families. We don't choose our families. We show up. And in fact, we can say God chooses our families for us. God decides the family that you are going to be born into. So I'm pausing there, and I'm going to ask you to pose some questions. Either tell us about your relationship with your family, with your siblings, amongst your siblings, how many siblings do you have? And, are you finding that you guys think similarly, or are you quite different? Or do you find that you have different views or very strong opinions? And so it's very interesting when you get together and you're doing a braai or family gathering, because everybody wants their voice to be heard, and it should be heard. Even the quiet ones, in our family, they deserve to have their voices heard. They deserve to be part of the decision making. They deserve to be there to hear, and also to listen, and also to be listened to. Yeah, to be listened to. So that it doesn't mean the one who's got the money is going to make the decision always. Doesn't mean the one who's got the loudest voice is the one that we must always listen to. So let's see what Pastor Hawk has posted something. Pastor Hawk says, sometimes I feel that my family, especially my brothers, want me around, but I feel that because they drink, I don't get their 100%. Whereas I give them my 100%, and they feel offended, and they say that I'm antisocial. There you go. That one is I love that example, because that is exactly it. The preferences I was talking about, why don't we get on with some of our family members or siblings, is because we have different preferences. Now, in a religious community, you have different faiths, right? So some of our family members, you may be a Christian, you may be a Muslim, you may be of the Jewish faith, you may be of the follow the Seventh-day Adventist, you may be Pentecostal, and we have strong views. People always used to say at work, if you want to get on with people, stay away from kids, stay away from relationships, stay away from the topic of religion, right? So these ones are the very taxing ones. So I'm talking about exactly preferences, strong preferences, and things that you think, I can't compromise on my faith. I like Pastor Mahok is saying, is about his siblings that are drinking, and he, maybe wanting to spend quality time with them, and they don't do the same social activities. And so then he feels that, they feel shortchanged, but he feels shortchanged because he gives them his 100% attention, and they may not be giving him the 100% attention. So what is it for you? What is it that your siblings are doing, or other people are doing? Or what is it that you are doing where your family members may think, Prudence is very boring, when we go out to the nightclub, she's always praying, or she's doing this, or she's just not a fun girl. What is it for you in your family? Smangaliso, hello, thank you very much for joining us. Amos, thank you very much for joining us. Abdul, thank you very much for joining us. So we are talking about building strong communities through our family. And then tonight we are talking specifically, looking at our family. What are those sticky points with our families? How are we able to get on with our families better during these holidays? And can we really work on those difficult relationships that we have with our family? Because listen, COVID has taught us that people are not hanging around all the time. I'm saying that people who were here last year, December, in the holidays, are not with us anymore. And that is a lot of people. A lot of people. So a lot of people, a lot of our loved ones have passed on. And so we must make the most of the family members we have left. And I want to really challenge and encourage us to have better relationships with our families, because we're born into those families and we don't choose our families. We choose our friends, right? You can just check out if that friendship is toxic. I'm out of here. But with family, with friends, with family, and with spouses, with marriages, once you're in, did I say marriage? Once you're in, right? So you have to choose wisely. And again, we're going to talk about diversity again in the area of marriage, because that's an interesting one. Because sometimes people say opposites attract. So you marry someone who's very different from you, and then all the time you sandpaper on each other. You have that boyfriend, and it's very nice. You're enjoying the person. You are, it's really lovely as you are in that romantic phase. And then you move in together. You're like, can you hang up the towel after you use it in the bathroom? Can you have the toilet seat up? Can you have the toilet seat down? Can you match the kitchen? Can you put the things back where they are? No, I don't do it like that. I don't do it like that. And on you go. So the very person you married, because they're outspoken, they're outgoing, these are the kind of things when you live with them, you're like, about that outgoing, outspoken. I'm tired. I don't want to go out every Friday, every Saturday, every Sunday. So we're talking about building strong communities through family, and we're talking about the diversity that we have in our families. So let me hear. Thank you very much for your comments. Thank you very much on YouTube. For your comments. I appreciate that. We are talking about unity in family, diversity in family, and we are just wanting to hear you telling us a little bit about your families and what are some of the things that are really create difficulties in your family. What are some of those differences where you think about, I don't understand why my sister has to be like that. I don't understand why my brother has to be like that. Or you may be growing up in a very small family, and then you may have been part of big families, or sometimes seeing how your friends have big families and how they interacting in a big family, and how complex or how close-knit that family may be. So sometimes it's difficult relationships. It could just be one or two people, doesn't really matter. And sometimes it could be a big family, and you see how close knitted that family is, how they help one another, how they just has each other's back. No matter what happens, the person always knows that my brothers, my sisters will always be looking up for me. And that some people have that experience right from creche. When you are in creche and your siblings are the same age as you, they look after you. If somebody bullies you, they are there's like friend, you must be very careful. That's my brother over there, that's my sister over there. So they look out for each other, and then when they grow up again, they look out for each other. They live very closely together. They are always there at the family gatherings. They are getting married. They're having children, and the family just grows and grows. And they stay close-knit families, whereas some families don't really have that experience. So unity in diversity. How can we have unity in diversity? So let's talk more about diversity. So I talked about preferences, different preferences, and often these preferences are the ones that make us not to get along, where we feel like we don't want to compromise. We feel like we don't want to be the one that always has to back down on your point. So now I'm going to throw a spanner in the works. Let's talk about those families where people have different persuasions of faith. And how does that create diversity? How does that diversity of faith, how does that create sometimes that family friction? How does that create that people don't get along because they believe in different faiths? They believe in different gods. They believe in different rituals, different practices, different traditions. And we can talk a little bit about even traditions. So when one believes it's time for the family to get together to do a particular ritual or practice, the other person says, I can't even participate in that. I totally, totally don't believe in it. What do you then do? How do you have that family gathering? How do you all get on with each other? So let's hear. I want to hear what are some of those where our audience, do you have the experience where you are from different faiths in your family, and sometimes that leads to friction? So let us hear from our audience, who has the experience where the different faiths that you believe in your family leads to friction? Who wants to share with us where the faith, the different, because you're from different faiths, that leads to friction in your family? Thank you. Here goes organic. She says tolerance and patience help when it comes to family relationships. Absolutely. And I will go further. So I'll tell you, for those who don't know, that I am an HR practitioner. So I do facilitate learning and development. And one of the topics that we facilitate training on is diversity. And in terms of diversity, we talk about where you have a community. Say, let's talk about South Africa, for example, right? In South Africa, you have 11 different official languages. Hello, 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 everybody on Facebook coming through. So you have diversity, and when you have diversity, you have to look at how would you interact with someone? How would you interact with that person? And we're saying that in diversity, you have to go beyond tolerance. If you are only going to tolerate someone, you one day going to explode. And that we saw, I think an example here in South Africa was recently when we had the lootings in July. I think it was around July. Because that was just on a tolerance level. We tolerate one another, but when something really, really starts to strike, you have an outburst because you were just tolerating someone. So we're saying you actually have to go beyond tolerance to acceptance, to understanding, to valuing people, valuing them for their differences, and for everybody to be okay, even though you're different. Yeah, it should be okay. We don't have to have a one size fits all, or this particular group is better than that group, this race is better than that race, this age group is better than that age group, and we start labeling each other. You young people, you older people, younger people do this better, older people do this. In families, we have some families where they have about 4 generations. I think on average we probably have 3 generations where you have grandparents, the parents, and then the children. And you can see, if you sit down with just one Saturday afternoon, with the grandparent, the parent, and the child, and you all are trying to make a decision on, let's go for dinner, let's go to the movies, everybody will want to do something different because of the different things that they'll enjoy doing. Different music, different clothing, many different things. And so we're saying you have to move in family relationships, you have to move beyond tolerance to understanding. In fact, you must aspire to move beyond tolerance, because if you're just tolerating someone, imagine in your home, I'm just tolerating you, it means that is not a rich relationship. And so I'm encouraging you and I'm challenging you to move beyond tolerance to, as they said, to patience, to acceptance. Do I accept my siblings for who they are, for being different than what I am? And sometimes I think I will come and be vulnerable with you. Don't tell anyone that. With my children, I sometimes have the conversations with them around studying, and I am one for academics. So when my children say I study arts or I want to do arts, I'm like, what's that? I go, no, you're not doing arts. You are going to do maths and you're going to do science. So that again in itself, sometimes I have to take a step back and say, okay, am I still accepting this person for their preferences, for the things that they enjoy doing, or am I trying to force my own ambitions on them? And for myself, I will tell you, it's not about my own ambitions, because I in my education, I achieved the things that I wanted to, but I want my children not to make decisions now that will maybe later on in life hamper them from being able to have broader opportunities. But I often have to ask myself, when I am saying go and study this and go do academics versus something different, I have to say to myself, it must not be at the level where they don't feel accepted just because of having a different preference or different viewpoint. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about families, we're talking about unity in diversity, we're talking about how diverse our families are, and how can we get to a place of being unified, of being accepting of one another, of being understanding of one another. How can we get to a place where we are looking at our family unit and saying, I know our family relationships have been difficult, but during this time of COVID, maybe I've had some time to reflect. And I want to engage differently with my family. I want to get on better with my family members. I want to get on better. Maybe I haven't spoken to my sister for a long time, my brother for a long time, my parent for a long time. So I am giving us the challenge of how are we going to be able to interact with our family members differently? Do we want to? Do we want to be, as Pastor Hawk saying, tolerance, acceptance, and understanding? Yes, that is what we should be striving for, so that people don't feel like I'm just putting up with you because you're here, but they know that you value them. They know that you can pick up the phone and encourage them. They know that when you're going through something or they going through something, that you've got their back, that they can count on you. I always say to my friends, you must know your ditch people. And what do I mean by ditch people? Who are the people that you call if you are in a ditch, if you are in some kind of way, some kind of trouble? Who are the people that you need to call? And first of all, you would like that to be your family members, right? Because you were born with them, they've seen you growing up, they know everything about you. So you would want to know who your ditch people are. And normally, the ditch people in your life are the people who accept you. You will make mistakes and they will love you. You will, they see your highs, they see your lows, they see you when you're winning the accolades, they see you when you are absolutely in the pits, the doldrums, when you've lost the job, you've gone through a divorce, you've lost your house, you've lost money. They are always there. They accept you. Yes, they would have told you, don't invest in that thing, don't do this, don't do that. But when the thing has happened, they would accept you. And that's why we're saying you're moving beyond tolerance to acceptance. I accept you just the way you are. Now, God has made us the way we are. Your personality may be shaped a little bit, but you do show up here with a big portion of your personality. And we then harness it, and it depends on, again, then the environment also shapes it a little bit. But a big part of your personality is there when you are born. And we see how children grow up, and when you have a baby, how they respond to you as they are growing up, the kind of things that they do, whether they're smiling, laughing all the time, or they're cranky and crying all the time. So, and then do you grow into that adult, right? So, and what is the experience that people then have around you? So thank you so much for being with us today. We're talking about family relationships. We're talking about how do we build strong communities? How do we find unity in diversity, and the diversity that's represented in our families? And now, just before we are going to check out of our conversation today, we want to think about the difficult relationships. And I was saying one of the things I ask you to think about is religion. Are there any tensions in your family created as a result of the different belief systems that you have amongst your parents, amongst your siblings, amongst the grandchildren, just the the family unit, the close knit family unit? Are there difficulties caused in relationships because of a difference in faith? So let's, for example, say there are some family members that are Muslim, there are some family members that are Christian, there are some family members that are let's say Seventh-day Adventists, they go to church on a Saturday. There's some family members going to church on Friday. There's some family members going to church on Sundays. Differences. And how do we navigate those kind of differences in our families? Like, how do you do it? How do you do it? And why are you doing it? Why are we even talking about community? Why are we even talking about community? So let's hear. Is somebody sharing? Do you have that kind of difference in diversity in religions in your family, and that sometimes leads to family tensions? Let's hear from our audience. Oh, sorry. Let's hear from our audience. Is there challenges created in is there tensions in our families as a result of the differences in faith? Who has that experience where it's challenging because of faith? And maybe your family, they don't have a particular faith at all, and you're the first person who then becomes, I would call it religious, but I call it faith. But the person is very religious, they're really practicing their faith actively, and the family's members are thinking, you becoming a bit fanatical about this. And you start feeling judged by them. You start feeling like, they ostracizing you, they're isolating you as a result of it. Do you feel in your family that maybe you're going through that as a result of your faith? So let's hear. Anyone had that experience where it is difficult in your family as a result of your diversity of faith? Anyone? Anyone? Let's think about another example. Anyone who's listening today who is married and across faiths, where so you are married either across faiths, you are of one religious persuasion and your spouse is of a different religious persuasion or of different cultures. Have you married a spouse from a different culture altogether? Have you married maybe a spouse from a different country? So now one of the things of diversity for me that's been interesting. So I've had the privilege to travel around the world, and now, when I'm saying around the world, it means I haven't traveled that much in Africa. So now I'm totally doing Africa. So I've been in Australia, Singapore, Middle East, blah, 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 blah. And now I'm doing Africa. So what I did was I thought, as I set out to travel in Africa, right, I'm not going to be so South African. I'm going to be an African. You know, when Thabo Mbeki was talking about African Renaissance. So I was like, right, that's it. I'm not going to be so South African. So when I'm out there, I'm an African. So I started traveling around the African countries. Very interesting. Oh my goodness, the diversity in Africa is truly amazing. The dress code, the rich diversity of the what people wear, the languages, the cultures, what they do, how they express their cultures, the greeting. So I'm learning so much because every time I go to a different country, I have to learn some things to do and some things not to do, not to be offensive. And I remember people always want to know. So I went out thinking I'm African. That's it. I'm showing up in other countries as an African. So nobody should ask me and I should just hand in glove, fit in with them. But no, because of the diversity, people want to know all the time, where are you from? And I'm like, why do you think I'm from somewhere else? Your features. So our features makes the diversity. So they'll tell me your skin tone or your features. They'll tell me your accent is diversity. They'll tell me it's about the things that you do. It's how you show up, how you express yourself. So all of that is a diversity. So I've had to dial myself way back then again. Oh, I'm from South Africa. And they're like, okay, that makes sense. You're from South Africa because in the culture in South Africa, we tend to do certain things, right? So some of our families are, again, the diversity in our families. Maybe you've married somebody from a different culture, married someone from a different country. And because of that, can I drop the mic on this one here? Because of the spouse that you've married, your family may not be accepting that person. Your family may have very strong views about that person from the culture that they're from or from the country that they're from. So how does that create the diversity again and the tensions and the divisions in your family? Because today we are talking about how can we create unity in diversity and the diversity that's presented in our families. Because as we're going home for Christmas now, as we're going home for holidays, if you don't celebrate Christmas, as we're going home for holidays, we are saying, are you happy to go home? Are you looking forward to all the things that you're going to be doing? Or you think, oh gosh, once a year I have to go home, but oh, I'm not looking forward to meeting this aunt and this uncle and this sibling and this parent and this, because we always have different and difficult relationships or conversations around certain things, and you don't feel accepted. You don't, you have these challenges with your family unit. So we're just talking about it. And I just thought it's a good opportunity because these things are really, really difficult for us. I think when you don't get on with your family, sometimes it's a great pain point in most of our lives because you are with your family for life and you'd want to get on with them, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes family members don't speak to each other. Sometimes people would be on their deathbed and call for you and they're dying, and you have not yet made peace with one another. So we want to really, I want to challenge all of us, myself included. I want to challenge all of us, and I want to encourage all of us to press in deeper to have better relationships with our families. And I think I could even really go way out there, but I'll leave that for another day, where I'm going to challenge us. We're going to do some family challenges and do some things and not just talk about it, because I don't like talk shops. I don't like to just sit here and have conversations. I don't just want to have conversations here, but we want to do something different. If something lands for you, something resonates with you, then let's go out there and do something different. So if you haven't spoken to your sister, you haven't spoken to your brother, you haven't spoken to your parents, what are you going to do about it? Now that we've talked about it, now that you know it's just differences in preference, it's in the diversity, is difference in personality, is difference in faith, different in beliefs, difference in culture, different in just upbringing. The biggest thing that I sometimes tell my kids as well, when I grew up, and they probably hate that phrase, this is what my parents did to us when we misbehaved. This is what my parents did to us when we misbehaved. And they are growing up in a different dispensation. And they don't appreciate it. Like, no, listen, those are we'll call them the good old days, but they just call it the dark days. They just like, okay, that's when you grew up. It's got nothing to do with us. So how do I then have better relationships with my children where they understand? We can appreciate when you grew up and how you were disciplined and the kind of relationship you had with your parents. And we also have a different relationship with you as our parent. How do we relate? How do we respect one another? How do we not get so streamlined into the communities the world that we live in, where everything goes? It is everything goes. And we can't have that. It's like pornography. It's like this. It's everything goes. And so we have to guard our parenting. We also have to have different conversations with our children, because everything cannot go. Everything cannot be okay. So how do we then interact with our kids about that? That again, that's diversity in age, is diversity in generation. So different generations we come from, and a different world that they live in, that we live in. But it doesn't mean because we live in different worlds and at different times that everything is okay. It is not okay. So this is one up for the parents. Everything is not okay. But we want to have very close relationships with our children. We want to know what is going on with them. How are they experiencing their world? We have babies these days. You can see them and they are licking their fingers and they are on the iPad from the age of 1. They already know how to manage an iPad, right? And some of us were adults before we bought ourselves iPads. But these are different worlds that we're living in. But it doesn't mean that good old respect for parents, respect for elders, respect for young people, respect has to go out the window, because we live in this digital world, because we live in the new normal. There are some things that really, really are still important. And why are those things important? They're important so that we can build a strong, positive community, and that community forms a positive society, and that society will dictate what our nation would look like. And that is why we're talking about building strong communities. So we are going to end here tonight. I hope some of the things that I said was helpful for you to just reflect on it, to really think about what are some of those difficult relationships that you've had. Thank you so much, everybody. What are those difficult relationships that you have with boyfriends, with girlfriends, with spouses, with children, grandchildren, parents, and you're not getting on with them? You're thinking, oh my goodness, it is the holidays. I want you to do different. I want you to go and do things differently. I want you to think about this time is going to be different. Tolani, thank you for joining us. Sifiso, thank you for joining us. So you really want to see, Supermandla, thank you for joining us. You want to have different relationship with people. And I really want to challenge all of us, because I think we also can fall prey to this whole idea that we're living in a digital age, that we are in lockdown, we are in a pandemic, we are behind our masks, we are social distancing all the time. I don't believe humans are created like that. I think we are created to touch and feel and hug and kiss and to be close to one another. I think, and in fact, there are studies that shows where people will tell you, if you have babies that are touched and loved and held close to your skin, they grow up differently and more secure than babies that don't get touched and don't get hugged and you are not very close to them. Because I think human beings were created that way, to really be in close contact with one another. So if you are distanced from your family members, I'm encouraging you to do something about those relationships this holidays. I'm asking you to just reflect on it. Even if you're not going to do anything, reflecting on it. thinking about it, deeply thinking about whether you would like to improve that relationship with your siblings, your parents, your friends, your children. In fact, let's stick with family. Let's stick with family. We'll talk some later point about the relationships we have with our friends. So if you want to do something about it, the first thing is to think about reflecting on it, and then to think about how understanding am I, how tolerant am I of other people's views and different opinions? Do I judge people for you are very opinionated, or do I allow everyone to have an opinion? Remember, we grew up differently. We have different views. We are educated differently. We watch different things on television. So I do have a view. And I think sometimes even spouses don't allow each other to have a view. Whenever one spouse says something, the other one, if they don't agree, then the other spouse thinks, you always want to have a different opinion. You always want to do something differently. And I want us just to enjoy these holidays, enjoy the time with one another, and just think about it. Like, just show up differently. That's it. Show up differently this holiday. When they think you're coming through the right, you come from the left. But just make this a wonderful, wonderful time with your family this holiday. And this is all on the backdrop of we've come to this new normal where relationships are so important, but we're so distant because of how we have to live these days. And many, many of our loved ones have passed away, and we don't have them with us anymore. So the ones that we do have, let's build quality relationships to build quality and strong families. And strong families will build a strong society, a strong community, and a strong community and society will build a strong nation. So thank you so much, everybody. We can post your closing comments about the topic today. If you've heard something that resonated, that landed for you, let us know. Share it with some of our other viewers. Just type something in for us in the chat box on Facebook, on YouTube. Let us know. What did you hear today? What was interesting? What landed for you? What was something that you are going to reflect on? Something that you want to share? Something that really occurred to you? Because sometimes it's as you hear somebody else saying something, it starts to occur to you, oh, wow, that is something that I want to go and think about and that I want to reflect on as well. So thank you so much. Whilst we are closing this broadcast today, I want you to share with us if there's something that you've heard, something that you've reflected on, something that's landed for you that we're going to read sometime later. I'm going to read all these comments and hear what you've got to say. I'm also inviting you to type for us if there's any topics you want me to cover and to talk about during this holiday. We want to engage with you. I don't want to talk just at you. I want to talk with you. I want to talk to you. So let us keep engaged and let us be here again on Thursday. I'm going to be live again Thursday at 7:00. What are we going to talk about? I'm going to unpack family relationships a little bit more. So we're going to talk a little bit more about family relationships. We're going to get into those really tough ones and give some practical examples of how family relationships can really go wrong and what can we do about those. And let's hear from our audience in terms of what you believe we can do differently. What can we do better? How can we give that person a warm hug that really needs a hug, but they seem to be that strong person in the family? Everybody needs love. So yes, that's where we're going to end tonight. Thank you so much. And I'll see you again on Thursday. And I'm also inviting you to the International Marketplace Summit. Keep on engaging with us on our platforms here on our Facebook platform, International Marketplace Summit. Same on YouTube, International Marketplace Summit. We also on our Twitter handle, INT_marketplace. And then we're also on Instagram at marketplacesummit.online. So meet us on our various platforms and let's keep engaged during these holidays. Thank you.